panel on looking at artistic expression through cultural lenses. We've got three wonderful, prolific writers, children's book writers, and I'm going to give them their thank you gift before the panel because I forgot to give the thank you gift to the last panelist at the end. So Khadijah, and you guys can look in the program and get a short glimpse of what they are. Obviously, the program has a limited number of words, but these women have a story, each of them, that is very long, and I hope you hear a part of that today. Here, Laurel, thank you for coming. I mean, not Laurel, Alexandra. And then there's Laurel. Thank you very much. So I'm going to leave it to Laurel. She's going to be the moderator. There's two different mics, so you guys decide how you're going to share.
Regina?
Yes.
Just moving that. I can't see her face.
This one?
Yes. Just to the side. Yes.
Is that good?
Maybe to the side, like all the way to the. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, she wants to get a picture of you guys sitting.
Yeah, I can't see your face there, so I wanted to.
She's gonna be recording you guys, video recording.
Oh, good gosh.
That's perfect. Thank you.
So, whenever you're ready.
Testing? Yes, it's working great. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here. Thank you, New Mexico Press Club, for having us. And my name is Laurel Goodluck, and I'll be moderating and answering questions here on our children's panel. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. Like I said, I'm Laurel Goodluck. I'm an author that's living here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but I have many communities. I'm a citizen of the Mandan, Caraza, and Arikara Nation in North Dakota, and I'm also a citizen of the Tsimshian tribe, Alaskan Native from Ketchikan, Alaska. I have an MA in counseling and a BA in psychology. I have some award-winning books here. Mostly I write picture books. My education background, or my career background, includes working for nonprofits in the education realm and children's mental health, and running my husband's medical office. Did that during COVID. That wasn't really fun at all. And then in 2018, I decided I wanted to write books, continue my mission as supporting the well-being of children, and so I began that journey. And by the time I was 60, I had my first book published, and that was Forever Cousins with Charles Bridge. So I also believe writing for children is a privilege and a responsibility. It's a privilege because kids are in their formative years. The readers of picture books are from 3 to age 6, but I say picture books are for everyone. And these are their formative years. They're figuring out who they are. They're figuring out their identity. They're starting to critically think and problem solve. And picture books can do all that. I bet you didn't know that. A picture book has 500 to 700 words. It has a main character that's the same age as the child that's being read to. The main character has some sort of challenge or problem, and they have to figure it out. There's 3 inciting incidents, and at the end, they figure it out. They problem solve. And as they problem solve this, at the end you usually have a surprise or a heartwarming ending or aha, and then it circles around to the front. So it really excites me to write in this structure, to have these structure of picture books, to be able to fit all that in 500, hopefully lyrical words that capture your audience, excite them in a fun story. And I'm just happy to be part of that and happy to be part of this community. So I'll just go down the road if I can have Khadijah introduce herself.
Hi everyone. So I was here last year. I came to the banquet. So my name is Khadijah VanBrakle. I'm born and raised in Canada to American parents. I actually live here in Albuquerque, and Both my books, Fatima Tate Takes a Cake, which came out in 2023, and then my next book, which is on the top display, comes out in July of 2025, are both set here. So I write for young adults, and I think it's very important that young adults see themselves on the printed page, and unfortunately, teens in my community, as a Black American Muslim, don't see themselves very often, so that is my focus. And I love to give my teenage girls impossible choices. Let me think. So, and I really want me writing, since my undergraduate degree is in accounting with my half-finished MBA, so this was definitely not what I saw myself doing, but I still do taxes every now and again. And answer phone calls from people. I really want my writing journey to inspire other teens, especially in our state, to tell their own stories. So I think that we'll get into a lot of the other notes that I have, but I'll hand it over to Alexandra.
Hi everyone, buenos días, ¿cómo están ustedes hoy? Sí, muy bien. So my name is Alexandra Diaz. I am a bilingual children's book and young adult author. Most of my books deal with immigration stories. So I am discussing things that are happening in today's world and issues that undocumented children are going through. And then I also have a historical fiction, which was very loosely based on my mother's immigration from Cuba to the United States in the 1960s. So I've grown up hearing what it was like for a person to leave their country, their family, their home, and not know if they were ever going to see them again. So those are the main themes of my books, but I also include family because family is very important to me, and it's very important to my characters as well. Having the support or not having the support of their families. I was fortunate that my mom was always very supportive of me as a writer, and even as a very young child, I would tell my little tall tales, and my mom was like, "Ay, no se preocupe, don't worry about it, she's going to be a writer." So that was something that I grew up hearing, and I don't have a degree in accounting or psychology. I actually do have a degree in writing for young people because that is what I always wanted to do, and it was the genre that always appealed to me. So to this day, I much rather read a book for middle grade or young adult readers than I would for an adult book. I mean, an adult book, ugh. That just sounds like I've grown up, and I don't feel like I've ever grown up. And, similar to what Lori was saying, my books are ultimately for all ages. So even though they say that they are for middle grade, I can honestly say that the first person who read this book was 89 years old, and she could not put it down. I was staying at her house, and she's like, "Do you need help with dinner?" And I'm like, "Yes, please, can you set the table?" "Okay, if you don't need my help, I will continue reading." And this book was the first person who read that, again, beyond editorial team, was an 80-year-old man who is my neighbor. So my books really are for all ages and not just, the age that they put on their catalog.
All right, well, we have our first question, and I'd like to see if Khadijah could answer this first. How does your cultural background affect your artistic expression?
So for me, I write what I know. And so because my books feature Black American Muslims, for example, in Fatima Tate, she wants to be a pastry chef. I have always loved to bake. I am just an amateur baker. Well, my middle daughter completed the culinary program at CNN. So inside this book is a Great British Bake Off, but for teenagers, a competition that my character enters, and my daughter created the recipes that are in the back of the book. So I write what I know, because I think for me, it's more important to show that Black American Muslims are present, are here in this country, and also are not a monolith. So people can read this and be like, oh, I didn't know. And we've actually faced that. And I'll go into that in our second question. But we've actually faced that where one of my daughters was at a local high school, the youngest one, and they told her she almost got in a fist fight. And I said, why? What happened? And she said, somebody told her that she can't be Black and Muslim at the same time. So, and then, of course, when this happened, we went to our local library, because we were a library family, and we looked for books that featured Black American Muslim main characters. And in 2017, there wasn't one, in contemporary film. So in the genre that I write, there wasn't one book that we could, so she could take out and she could read and see herself on, on the pages of a printed book. So that then became my mission, to write these stories.
I'll go ahead and answer this question next. So my cultural background affects my artistic expression just the way that I live my life. Culturally, my culture is sprinkled through organically in my everyday life, and so that's how I write my books. And just to give you an example, here in Forever Cousins, this book here is about two cousins who love each other, they're best friends, they're really like sisters. And if you look at our Native family structures based on clans, they really are sisters. So that's how it can be sprinkled through a book. You consider yourself really sisters. But in this book, the two cousins live in an urban setting, and one of them is going to move away to their homelands, to the reservation. And so if you look at what happened to Native Americans historically, we've had federal programs in our modern history to assimilate us and bring us to the cities. So that's why most Native Americans now live in cities and urban centers. 80% of us do. And so these two cousins are really figuring out their friendship and having to say goodbye and what is life going to be like for them. And so they go through these things separately and find out that their culture, their family, their traditions are going to keep them together. Their ceremonies that they go through in the book. And so that's an example of how culture is sprinkled through these universal themes of love and family, of community and friendship. And so these books are relatable to all children. All children have experienced somebody moving away or moving themselves. And so when I work in the classroom with kids, we bring up all different cultures, we bring up their own experiences, and then we have representation. And then we have kids being able to see, oh, we're the same, we're different in this way. And to me, that's the exciting part of these books, as somebody who has a background in psychology and really care for the social well-being of children. But also, Native kids, just like Khadijah was saying, she has written the first Black American Muslim book. We have not been in books. Second, excuse me. And so for Native kids, the statistics are, when I started out writing, Native main characters in books was only 1%. And Native people writing their own books was only 1%. It's almost 2% now. So it's very slow, like a glacier, but we are moving. There's this great community of Native writers that I'm part of nationally and into Canada, and we're trying to change this. Publishing is now letting us in. They're realizing our books will sell, and the well-being of children. To me, it's almost abusive not having all diverse people in books, because just look at the conversations we're missing when we're all not represented and all ideas are coming out. So an example of when I go into the classroom and there's Native kids, just last month I was in Rio Rancho, and a Native boy, after my talk, we read my newest book, Yadala, which means good grief, or if you're Jewish, oh, oy vey. So it's kind of...
Ave Maria!
Yes, So we had a lot of fun with that. We had a lot of fun saying Yad Allah throughout the book as a refrain. Kids were repeating it. Kids were also coming up with what that meant to them. And when I left that day, and I accidentally parked in the bus area. So I saw all the lines of kids, and there were so many continuing of Yad Allah, so saying other languages, learning their friends' languages. But anyway, back to this little boy. He came up. His name was Theron, second grader, Navajo. He put his arms out to my books because they were out also. And he said, "Thank you for writing these books. Your books now, I can see my traditions in books." So he had never, ever seen himself. And I have a dozen stories like this of other kids being able to see themselves in books and the excitement that they show when they're seeing that. So we're trying to change that narrative, and I always encourage kids to write, tell them the careers that storytelling careers, there's writing, there's illustrating, there's movies, there's music, there's so many ways to tell your story. So I encourage any of you too that may want to be writing. There's the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, a national organization, and every state has a chapter. We have a very active chapter. So if you ever are thinking of a book yourself, there's resources out there, there's workshops. So just Google SCBWI New Mexico. So I'll hand this over to Alex.
Well, I feel like both of you have just said absolutely everything I wanted to say. Yes, I mean, representation in books is so, so important. And I mean, I have had kids come up and say, you know, even a bit hostilely, like, "How did you know what happened to me?" And I'm like, you know what? I actually don't know what has happened to you specifically. I just know what has happened to other kids. And I'm talking about kids who have come here to the United States undocumented, sometimes by themselves, or who have even been sent to immigration detention centers. And then once I have reassured them that I'm actually not, you know, like a big brother with a camera over, you know, their head, that I have done, you know, a lot of research, and I have spoken with people with similar experiences, you know, then they kind of calm down and they give me a big hug and they're like, you know, "Thank you so much." And I mean, it is just so important for kids to know that they are seen, that their stories matter, and that they matter. So being able to see themselves in their books is, I mean, absolutely wonderful. But then all along that same line is having stories that show characters that are different from, you know, from the protagonist, so showing protagonists that are different from the readers. That's how I was trying to say it. So that, you know, new readers can suddenly get an idea of, you know, these new words or, you know, new traditions that may have been unfamiliar with them. So they have this understanding. It's like, okay, this person is not like me, but they're like people in my community, on my soccer team, in my place of worship. And that in itself helps build so much empathy in the child readers. And I think it was Lori who was saying that, you know, at this age, they are at their formable years and they're able to accept and grow as humans through reading books that are different from their own culture. I also just wanted to make a little comment. So Lori mentioned about cousins being, you know, so close that they were like sisters. In Spanish, we actually have a word for that. It's called primo hermano, or prima hermana. And you hear it and you think, cousin, sister, you know, cousin, brother, and you're thinking, is everybody, you know, incestuous here? And you're like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's actually the word for first cousins, and it's often used when you are so close to your first cousin and you are raised together that it's like having a sibling, a brother or a sister, primo hermano, prima hermana, that, yeah, you love them like they were siblings instead of being one generation removed. And I mean, that's something that I have a lot as well. So I have a lot of cousins, especially in these 3 books. And yeah, you have that relationship between 2 children who have grown up together their whole lives and have that connection with their family and with their, you know, what we say in English, the extended family, but the extended family is actually part, you know, as well as the abuela and all those other people. So it's great how we can see that even though we have, you know, very different backgrounds, we still have these connections and we still have these similarities within our cultures.
So for our next question, Alex, would you mind taking that one too? And the question is, what fuels writers or dictates the stories they tell?
Right, well, I think it's things that you feel passionate about, things that you have a connection to, things that you can relate to, maybe even things that you might want to know a little bit more about. I can honestly say that when people have told me that they're writing something just because it will sell, it always kind of sits a little awkward with me because I don't feel that should be a writer's target, is just what, you know, what will sell. Obviously, if what will sell interests you, you know, beyond just the monetary value, then that's fine. So, yeah, I think that we, all 3 of us, are very, you know, involved in our cultures, in our communities, and part of that involvement, part of that joy, and that relatability is what brings forth our books. And I mean, we have all said that we write because we want our cultures and our communities to be represented more. So I do feel that is a very, very strong thing that motivates a writer. That's not to say that you can't do research about something. If you are passionate about it and you can look into, okay, what is this situation? What is this going on? But it's, yeah, bringing that joy, bringing that desire that I feel makes good books, and not just, okay, well, it will sell well, because I don't feel that is the ideal pathway, in my opinion. Obviously, others can disagree.
Yeah, go ahead, Khadijah.
Okay, so for me, sometimes it feels overwhelming because there are so few books with Black American Muslims. For example, on this tabletop display is a picture. There's a picture of me and then Fatima Tate, and then there's a picture of the cover of my sophomore novel, which comes out July 29th this year. And that is my reimagining of the Gilmore Girls, because I'm addicted. I'm not going to tell you Team Dean, Team Logan, Team Jess. I'm not saying, because then you will be like, no, never mind. But so because I like the fraught mother-daughter relationships within the Gilmore Girls, but of course I set it within a fractured Black American Muslim family. And both of my books, this one is solely in Albuquerque. My perfect family is set in Albuquerque, and she actually takes the rail runner, so that meant I took the rail runner to Santa Fe. So for me, it's what I'm interested in, and also, unfortunately, I have like a work in progress, like it's like 81,000 words of needs to be revised, but it's about predatory grooming. And my agent hasn't even seen it yet, but you know, and unfortunately, because I can't write about sunshine and rainbows. I just can't. So I had a college student come up to me, Muslim college student, and when she found out about Fatima Tate, and she asked me what other things that I was working on, and I told her about My Perfect Family, and then about Glimpses of Me, which is still on my hard drive. And I told her what it was about. She literally pulled me to the side and said, Sister Khadijah, I didn't know there were Muslims who thought the way that you do, because when she was 13, she was molested, and she never told her parents because her immigrant parents would blame her. And that like touched me, so of course I had to like give her some resources because, like I said, accounting, MBA, I don't have those skills. But that is why I write. And having 5 children, 3 of whom are daughters, and getting to know their friends and hearing the conversations and even being part, sometimes if I'm invited, of their conversations and knowing what they're going through, those are the kind of stories that I want to write because I think that's what they're owed. And I think, unfortunately, in my faith community, they like to sweep things under the rug, but I'm the person that lifts up the rug and exposes the dirt.
Well done.
I got this. So I'll go ahead and answer this. What fuels my writing? Well, my books have 2 parts to them, or maybe 2 stories, or 2 layers, however you want to say it. In the beginning of the front of the book is the story for the kids. Hopefully it's engaging, it's readable, it's something fun that they want to find out what happens next, because picture books are a lot like a movie or a play where the next page is a scene and you can't wait to get it, and sometimes you'll leave a little cliffhanger or the illustrator will change and tweak things a little differently. So there's so much to these fun stories. Here, I told you a little bit about Forever Cousins. Rock Your Mocks is a concept book talking about different nations that celebrate Rock Your Mocks Day that began here in New Mexico with a young teenager from Laguna Pueblo, Jaylene Atsey, and she came home from a ceremony one day and she said, "Why don't we wear our moccasins all the time?" And her parents couldn't answer that. And so she started a movement, like a good teenager, went on social media, started a Facebook page, got a small amount of following, then a media company, a native media company, helped boost that. So over 15 years now, we've been rocking our mocks in schools. Adults rock them when they go to work or for the day. And it's really a celebration of saying, I can be my whole self. I can wear what makes me proud and represents me. So great conversations with kids, not only Native kids, but all kids. What do you wear that you really think is special and says, I can be my whole self? So these conversations are needed in the classroom so that we can see those mirrors of each other, or we can see that there's a whole new world out there and you just learned about it. This yearbook, the fun story, is about Too Much, my great big Native family. And it's about a little boy, Russell, who's trying to tell some good news, but he's not heard because his family's so big and loving. Finally, he gets the attention and they all find out his great news. And so in this book here, that's brand new, Ya Gala, it's all about a Navajo family going to pick up the Nully from her sheep camp. She's too old to live alone, and she's going to be living in their home. Bahi learns how sad she is about moving and is up to something that looks like he's up to some kind of tricks. And the family keeps going, Ya Gala, Bahi, what are you doing? And they find out at the end that he was doing something very special for his Nully, his grandma. And so that's the fun part of the books. And the back matter is the second layer that I was talking about that really fuels why I want to write. And the back matter is the author's note. And I'll talk about my inspiration, the culture, or the history that is not told. In our schools, 80% of the schools in the United States don't go past 1890 with Native American history. That is such a disservice for us. We go into other states than New Mexico because we know who are people here in our state, but in other states they don't even know that we're around. They don't even know that we're still here as modern people, sharing a lot of similarities. So in Forever Cousins, I talk about the Indian Relocation Act that my family went through, and that's why I grew up in California as an urban Indian. So that fuels my writing, that need to tell, erase history, so that we all know that we're still here, and that doesn't create stereotypes of us. It creates more partnerships and relationships and kindness to one another. So we are on to our third question, and I'd like to see if Khadijah can answer this first. What are the barriers to your artistic expression, if there's any?
Okay, we're gonna keep this brief. Because we do want to have, if there's any questions and answers. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to say is that the first fact, publishing is a business. A lot of authors don't realize that, and it's just the truth. Second, because there are so few of books of what I write, it was probably difficult for my agent to sell it because they want to look at books, comparable books, and see how they did. And I do remember before December 15th, 2021, when I got my first offer, when I was with Lori at a restaurant, that the last 3 responses I got from publishers were like, we love Fatima Tate, we don't know how to sell it. Because it's not just that they love the story, they have to think, how can I market it? So for me, my first barrier is fear, all day, every day. Because, you know, you have to, everything in publishing is subjective. You have to find a literary agent who loves it, who has a vision for your book, and then thinks they can sell it. Then, of course, going on submission, and then, you know, hoping, crossing all the fingers, all the toes, and having a submission journal like I did, and not checking your email every 3 seconds. Also, how will it do as far as sales? Because that is what publishers will look at to say, okay, we made a good investment. We're going to acquire more books from this author, or maybe even more books in this genre written by this type of author. I learned very early on, I don't read reviews. Because before this book was even copy edited, somebody put on one started on Goodreads and said that they hated it. You couldn't have read it because the ARC wasn't even printed. I don't know, but anyway. Also, the biggest one for me, and those other ones were big, but the biggest ones for me is how will members of my own faith community, there are, like if you go on Goodreads, you will see many a 1-star. Because, 1, on page 2, you find out that Fatima's best friend Zainab has a girlfriend. And they're like, what kind of Muslim is she? Oh my goodness gracious. And I'm like, I got 3 black belts. I don't think you can take me, so just don't read the book. So it's just, that's fine, I'm just good. So my daughter's just, mommy, the teenagers or people who read it, and, you know, and they get to it, they're not gonna look at Goodreads. So I think that for me, because of the sensitive nature of some of the topics that I talk about, that is always a fear for me. But I feel like because there aren't books out here addressing, I feel like that's my place. And I want to make that my brand so people know if they pick up a book by Khadijah VanBrakle, there are going to be some subtleties and some, you know, maybe not hit over your head messages that, that you will learn within. And I think for me, how the fear is abated is when I get letters from librarians, high school librarians, or from high school students, or I did 6 classrooms on World Read Aloud Day. 5, a single classroom, and then 5 at once. It was crazy, out of Texas. And it was like heartwarming when kids are like, oh my God, like you're an author, like that's so awesome, like how can I? And I'm like, learn the craft of writing and learn to love revision. Like, so I think for me, that I latch on to the positive reinforcement, and that is why I have a friend in Florida who sends me 5-star reviews, so I don't have to look at them, and then I might be able to, sprinkle them on the social media of it all. But I think for me, I have to say fear, because it's scary to put your words out there, and I understand that, so I think.
Well, how about you, Alex?
Well, I wasn't going to mention fear until Khadijah started with it. No, it is. And I mean, yes, that there is definitely that vulnerability, there's that fear, and you know people are not always going to agree with your writing. And I mean, for me, this has always been my passion, my dream. So yes, you know, the fear of job security, I will honestly say, is something that I go through quite a lot. I don't know if I am going to have a next book published. I want to, and I have kids saying, you know, how many more books are you going to write? And I'm like, well, I'm going to write till I'm 100. I'm not there yet, by the way. But, you know, there is that underlying fear of rejection. I was at a conference in Georgia earlier this week, and I was supposed to visit a school after that conference. And they canceled on me because my books deal with immigration, and considering the current climate, and this is Georgia, the school was afraid of outing their kids if they were undocumented, and they were afraid of any kind of harassment that the readers might face. They were even considering, you know, well, maybe we need to send out a permission form to parents to see if, you know, if their child is allowed to attend my book talk. And yes, they're unfortunately receiving a lot of harassment from the kids to the other kids, where the kids are even saying things like, you know, if you don't do this, I'm going to get your parents deported. And, you know, that kind of bullying that's happening in this particular middle school. So yes, they actually ended up canceling my visit, even though, you know, the principal had been on board, and I mean, this was booked from September. So, you know, it was something that, you know, they wanted to do, but for that protection of their students, they chose to have me not come. So that is definitely one of the barriers that I am facing. Is it's not exactly book banning, but it is author banning, quite honestly. And even though I said, you know, well, we can focus on creative writing, we could, you know, make it more fun and not focus on immigration, they still chose not to have me. So yeah, it does boil down to that fear of how can I make this job, which is the job that I've always wanted to have, work for me, and how can I reach my readership when my readers are prevented from reading what they want to read, or what might inspire them, or what might help them see the world through a new set of lens. You know, again, having these books out there that can show a new perspective, that can enlighten readers to what is happening in the world today.
Thank you. Before I answer this last question, we've left 15 whole minutes for Q&A, as Khadijah said. So think about it. Jot down a question that you might have. We have a lot of resources. We love answering questions, so we hope to have some. So the last question, I'll go ahead. A couple of barriers that I see is that I'm known as a native author instead of just an author. You could even add native children's author, and it just adds a little bit areas of, well, it adds representation, which is the good part of that. But the other part is a lot of times my busiest months start in mid-October through November, because Native American Heritage Month has started, and they want to focus on those books only at that time. But these books are for everybody. Like I said, when a picture book is a book that is meant to be read with an adult, and meant to, the benefits of that is relationships are strengthened, bonding is strengthened, and we need that at this time of the U.S., what's going on. So that's a barrier. I would like to be just known as an author, but I guess I'm a native author for now. And maybe later on our next generations will just be authors. The second barrier is, I'm going to continue on what both of my friends have talked about, is the fear. And mine began before our government's destroying our democracy. Now with this new, with our new president, and destroying, taking down our education department, stopping libraries, all of that is going to be a big barrier. Book banning. 2 of my books have already been banned. And the books that were banned was Forever Cousins in Michigan, when a school board president wouldn't allow it on their shelves. And then surprisingly, the Deb Holland book, She Persisted series, was Scholastic Book Fairs. Everybody's been to a Scholastic Book Fair. We had them as kids. Unfortunately, for a time, they had a diverse button that said, if you don't want any diverse books brought to your school, push this button and we won't send them on. So it was censored. So I think book banning is just going to be going up, and we're going to have more problems with that, and it's going to be more challenges as we continue these next few years and what's happening in our country. So that's our barriers. I guess I want to leave on a positive note. Maybe what I would like to say is that being a writer is kind of like, your butt is in seat and you're writing and you're trying to get your stories out, and it's lonely sometimes. But times like this, being with community, like my New Mexico author friends here, is just a special treat. We understand each other, we support each other. I have a national community of Native writers. We get together online, we critique our work. We just are supportive of each other. We're not competitive with each other. Anything that we can do to help each other out, we do that. So it's a very special community to be part of, and just happy to be able to express our artistic creativity with one another. And I really just want to thank you for listening to us today, and I hope you jotted down some questions, because we'll turn to that now. And if you don't, I have some.
Regina?
Yeah, first I want to make sure you know that next year's Z Award is the children's book. And you can see anything you've written in last year, this year, or next year. Maybe you go back one more year. But anyway, make sure you put your books in to the Z Award. But my question continues with that notion of what's happening in our country, and the notion of DEI, and how people are just being covered with a big blanket. And that sense that, I'm an Hispanic woman, so that the only reason why you have your degrees or you're an author is because DEI. How do you combat that? How do you ignore it? How do you deal with it?
Oh, so I'm going to address this. So it depends. Okay, so before when I was just a querying author, querying means I was looking for a literary agent. I had Fatima Tate was not the original title, Takes a Cake. When I was querying this book, I went to a local writing meeting, and somebody said to me, what I said was, I had done this when Twitter was still Twitter. I did a diverse pitch contest, and the pitch got a lot of attention, like 80 likes. Half of them were legit, so like 40 editors and agents liked the pitch. So I happened to see that 2 Christian publishers liked the pitch. So I knew that this man at the meeting was writing Christian fiction. So I said to him, have you ever heard of these publishers? You might want to send your work. He looked at me and he said, well, how do you know about them? And so I told him a little story about the diverse pitch contest. He's like, oh, it must be so easy for you. You're black and Muslim. It's just, somebody's gonna snap you up like that. And I'm like, really? Are the agents standing outside my house door? Do you think that I just want, the only reason that somebody would choose my manuscript is because I'm a black American Muslim and not because of the contents, the words, the story? So I'm not usually shocked into silence, but I was. But probably today I wouldn't be. So I think the thing is, it depends, and I think that your achievements have to speak for themselves, and you can't do it for recognition. Like, look at me, I have a you know, I have a daughter who's getting ready to graduate with her master's from DU, and, you know, she's taught in Korea and for 5 years, and, you know, she's just came back from Australia. Like, she's not doing it to have the alphabet soup after her name. So I really think that, that we as marginalized, members of marginalized communities need to do things like, I tell people all the time, I'm not gonna police what you write. You wanna write a book about Black American Muslims, so go right ahead. But let me just give you one little tip. If you're writing about Ramadan, don't go to Wikipedia. Fast for 3-4 days, from sun up to sundown. And experience it so you can, you know, so you can legit write about it. How you feel when you break your fast, how you feel during the day when your stomach is growling and your head hurts because you're thirsty. So that's my thing. So of course every Muslim feels differently, but if somebody asks me, I'm not gonna police what you write, but I don't want a white writer's experience about writing about Black American Muslims to overshadow me just because of their lack of melanin.
I'll just add to that. Bottom line is we know the statistics. We haven't been in the industry. We don't see our kids in books. I've been fortunate not to have anybody question me like you've had, rudely question you like that. But we also have allies in the industry. It's a group effort to put these books out. It's a team effort. It's not just me, it's the editor, it's the artistic department, it's my agent, it's the illustrator. It's a team. Once you sell your book, your story, you're giving it up to the team, and we're just gonna make it better. So if you have that attitude of knowing to give it up, you have these allies that are working with us. So there's 2 imprints that are very important that are just earth-shaking to me. There's an imprint called Heart Drum, and it's specifically for Native writers. Never in the top 5 books, publishing agencies has there been a imprint just for Native writers, and that's what produced Rock Your Marks at HarperCollins. Just last month, in Penguin Random House under Tundra Books, and I'm just forgetting the name of the imprint, they have the same thing, Native writers or Indigenous writers, and the editor is an Indigenous writer himself. So yeah, it's written, and I'm forgetting the name too there. I said I was over 60. So yes, there's allies in the industry, and I think that's just in life. You find your allies, you find your like-minded people, and you're going for these same things, and you remember your mission. So that's how I think we get through this. And also, we're all here because our hearts are big for children. We want them to have this goodness. When my kids were little, and I always bring this book, my mother and I would take pictures of our kids and we'd cut them out and put them in books so they could see themselves. Now we don't have to do this, but I'm going to keep these books because they're so darn cute. So that's I think how we handle that. Do you have anything to add, Alex?
I just wanted to say that you know, prejudice and racism comes in so many different forms. I'm a Latino writer, and yet a lot of people have an idea of what a Latino writer needs to look like, and I, you know, kind of similar to what Khadijah was saying, was like, oh, you've got it made. I don't have it made just because I'm a Latino writer, just because I'm a diverse writer, because people have this idea of what Latinos are supposed to look like. I am Cuban, I was born in Puerto Rico, I am a fluent Spanish speaker, and yet some people have claimed I'm not Latina enough. And it's not their right to do that. And we often, or not we, but people in general often forget that, you know, being Latino encompasses so many different countries and so many different cultures. So there really isn't just one, you know, Latino look that that encompasses everyone. Because I mean, we're talking about Caribbean, we're talking about Central America, South America, and the United States as well. And there's just so much diversity amongst us that we can't all fit into that one box. So that is something that I often have challenges with. You know, you were asking about that. So yeah, I think it's important for our readership to know that, you know, Latino doesn't just mean one thing. It encompasses so many different heritages, cultures, ethnicities, and diversity within our marginalized bracket there.
I like that bracket. So we're looking out at you now. Any other questions? Oh, great.
Well, I applaud all of your work as a fellow writer. We're honored to be here with you, all of us. We support you. Alex, I want to thank you personally for sending books to us for Libros para Viaje. Your books made it to refugee shelters all across the border, and the delight which the children received these books was immeasurable. Thank you for reaching out, sending us many books, and all I can say is, and I would challenge everybody, the young adult market needs more books. We need more books for children and more books for young adults. It's easy to find adult books, and I don't understand. How do you feel about the trend in young adult literature? Everything is magic, spells, other worlds, demons, incantations. I find it very distressing. And then on the adult level, you have mysteries, killings, incantations, spells. It's like a demonic overlord kind of literature that has fantasy, myth. When our lives are so troubled, why have we turned to this literature?
So I think in the young adult sphere, I think you have to go back to Harry Potter. And then the popularity and the explosion of those books fueled, and I read because I write contemporary young adults, so it's realistic fiction that's like contemporary, takes place now. When I draft, I actually read fantasy, because really good fantasy, their world building is impeccable. So I think it's just a trend, because last year I met with some Albuquerque high school librarians at APS, and for example, I literally asked them, I didn't want this to be just me talking to you, let's have a conversation. I'm like, how do you get the teenagers in the library to read the books? And they if they make one step towards them, they make 3 steps. You know, if the student makes 1 step towards them, they try to bring them in. And right now, murder mysteries, you know, true crime, that is very popular. So that is, and when publishing sees that, then the editors might put out somewhere on their wish list of what they would like to see, and then let one book like that like blow up and like have all the sales, and so then, you know, people are running to, okay, you know, we have a book like that, or we have this kind of book. So I think the thing is that if you don't want to read fantasy or anything that's, you said the word demonic, I think there's plenty of other choices, and I think the best place to start is the library. And that's how I started writing. When in 2012, I wrote a really terrible middle grade fantasy, no world building, no character development, really bad. But I started at my local library, Tramway and Lomas, and I said, you know, can you give me a series, 11 to 12-year-old girls, and then they pointed me in the right direction. So I think there are plenty of realistic fiction or books that, you know, don't go into the demons fantasy world. I think you have to find them, and I think that is one of the major problems, because there are a lot of books published every year, but not everybody gets the superstar treatment. So visibility is something that's really important. So for me, I don't have a problem with books that I might not be attracted to. Like, it's really hard for me to read historical fiction and science fiction. I don't think I'm smart enough. But you know, I think then I just don't read those books. So, but I'm saying if you were looking for a different kind of book, I think the best place to start is the library and to ask them, like, what is recent and depending on what you're looking for. Because it doesn't bother me because, you know, somebody's reading that. And I really think that, I tell teens all the time, if you don't see a book in the library that you connect with, write your own.
I know that I have a bookstore, and a father came in with a child, well, a young adult, and he said to me, "We want to see dark books." And it was, okay, well, let me see. Immediately I made a shift in my mind. I said, well, I knew what he meant. He wanted the occult. They wanted occult books, they wanted books of whatever nature. I knew what they wanted. But it's a matter of changing the prism of understanding and say, oh, well, let me show you this book. This book has, it's one of our local authors or whatever. So as a bookseller and as a writer, I think it's our responsibility to change that prism of understanding, because people will come into my bookstore looking for Anton LaVey, the Satanist, and it's like, okay, I know who he is. I've seen his house, which was painted black in San Francisco, but hey, no, I don't have that. But let me show you something else. Let me give you an alternative, and the libraries do give us that. But I think as booksellers, as writers, we have to have alternatives. Even Pancho Villa upsets people. Did he kill your father? Did he kill your grandfather? Somebody just berated us because we had books on Pancho Villa. Well, you know, it's history, it's life. I have thrown books away. I do not need everyday witchcraft. Or if it's moldy, I've thrown many books away. But the thing is, it's a matter of changing understanding and perception, and I think, I won't talk anymore here, but I think each of you is doing that in your own way, and it's our responsibility as grandmothers and mothers to change perceptions of people who are reading and offer them alternatives of hope.
Yeah, so, I mean, your original question was, you know, why you thought that trend was happening, and I just want to start off saying that I agree this is a huge trend. I was a reader at a children's book award contest, and out of the 30 manuscripts that were given to me, only 2 were set in a contemporary world. And I even say that because one of them was historical fiction, but yeah, I would say only 2 did not have magic or, you know, all that kind of like fantasy element of those stories. For me, I have always liked contemporary fiction, both to read and to write, because I want to feel like these are my friends, these are people who I might meet across the street, and I also find it easier to put myself in if it's a contemporary world. I think a lot of readers, though, they want to escape the contemporary world, and that's why they're drawn to that fantasy element, or it could even be that more like innocent. So a child may relate to a talking dog, which, you know, is technically fantasy, but they feel they can relate to that or they can escape to that. So I feel that might be why people are reading things about magic and demons and whatever, because it's an escape from their own reality. It takes them out and puts them in a place where they don't have to think about their everyday problems or lives or things like that. So, who knows?
I have a little bit different take on that. If you look at our oral traditions and our stories, they're not myths, they're not legends, they're our history. There's a lot of monsters involved. There's a lot of, you might call darkness, and it's really showing the kind of the hajou, the dark side and the light side of things. And you have to have both in the world to be able to see the world clearly and make those decisions. And so I have a lot of friends who are YA writers, natives, and from different tribal backgrounds, from different tribal oral stories, and they tell these stories what might be considered fantasy and such, and bring them in the modern light. And if you look deeper in these stories, you're going to see these themes are telling us a lot of things of what's going on in the world today. And kids can relate to that. We've had the cookie cutter books, and had them written, and they keep telling them over and over again. And so I think it's time, and it's okay to see these books that have these underlying. If you look internationally too, they've done that for a long time. They're picture books internationally in Japan and France and different places. They deal with deeper issues. So I don't think we have to be too afraid. I know that you're talking about some that may be really off the skew, but I think most YA considered in those areas really have deeper meanings, and kids and children and young adults want these books and want to have these challenging type of books that show them different things. Before we wrap up, I just want to tell you the few resources that if you're thinking of writing. There's Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. There's the New Mexico region. We Need Diverse Books is an organization that changed everything in publishing. They have resources for teachers, for educators, for librarians, for authors, for parents. They have Indigenous Reads Rising on their website that lists all the Native books that are put out, and they do that monthly. And we have websites. Just Google our names and you'll find us. We have books in back that are for sale. I also have some postcards there. I'm having a book launch at Bookworks for 2 books for Yadala and also for Fierce Aunties. And you'll notice that Deb Holland's in this book also. And do you have any other resources that you want to share?
So I do. So if you are interested in writing books, on my website, which is just my name, KadijahVanBrakle.com, there's actually a resource tab on my website, just some free resources. And then I also, along with the copies of Fatima Tate, I'm going to have a launch for My Perfect Family. It's already set for page 1 on July 29th. There's a QR code on this tabletop display. And then I brought some bookmarks in the back. For free.
Okay, so it's not really a resource, it's more like 3 tips. If you want to write a book, there's 3 things you need to do. First, you have to start it. So many people say, I want to write a book, and they never actually start it. The second thing you need to do is finish it. It is very, very difficult to get a book published if it's not finished. I mean, you can get, books for, contracts for books that will be finished, but they need to be finished at some point. Most publishers will not publish an unfinished book. And then your third task is try to get some good positive feedback, some constructive criticism, so joining a writer's group, people that you can trust who can say, I really love this part. This part felt a little, and maybe you can move this section over here. So getting that constructive criticism, that feedback from people that you trust, I believe these are your 3 tasks if you want to write a book. Start it, finish it, get some constructive feedback.
That sounds great. Butt in chair.
Yes.
Well, thank you, everyone. It looks like we're at the end. Unless there's a burning question, we'll go ahead and end now. And thank you again for having us.